Hello everybody, my name is Adam Miles, and welcome to I Need Something to Watch, the conveniently named show that looks to provide you with recommendations for your horror-fueled nights of watching. I'm going to kind of show my age a little bit here for a moment, and I'm just going to say, in a day before the modern age of internet, back when I was a young horror fan, like a lot of us who were out there still, there was a time when we had to kind of go on a bit of a blind faith when we were checking out movies from our local mom and pop rental shops, or even some of the bigger chains if they were available in your area. We would spend hours walking down the aisles, checking out the cover art, reading the backs of the movies, and just looking for what could potentially be that next piece of classic cinema for us to watch that night. In fact, there were even times when we had watched a movie and the wonderful opening that would always give some sort of a presentation of future movies that were, something to look forward to. Then we made it our Friday night missions to look for those exact movies as well. We all know that everybody's tastes absolutely vary. Some people like a little bit of dark comedy into their horror movies. Some people just like extreme gore. But a show like this is actually made to represent the fact that you're always looking for that next little nugget of joy. In the end, I'm hoping to bring back some of that blind faith in choosing a movie to watch. I mean, let's face it, you're watching a show called I Need Something to Watch, so obviously you're looking for a recommendation, so take my recommendation and let's go. First recommendation of the show, I have to go with a recommendation that is very much so a near and dear one to my heart, since I was a very young horror movie fan myself. I'm talking about 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Given to us by the late great master of horror TOBE Hooper, who also provided extremely great movies such as Poltergeist, The Funhouse, and even Billy Idol's Dancing with Myself music video. And starring one of the absolute sweetest and larger-than-life men I've ever met personally in my life, Mr. Gunnar Hansen. This movie has been absolutely with me since the very early years of my horror addiction, and will continue to be for the rest of my horror-enjoying life. So what's it about? As if you have to ask. The story centers on two siblings, Sally and Franklin, joined by three of their friends, Jerry, Kirk, and Pam, who are all en route to visit their grandfather's graves in Texas, where they fall victim to a family of cannibalistic psychopaths, introducing us to the horror icon and legend known as Leatherface. The tagline on the poster and the cover alone should be enough to sell you on the movie, as it raises the amazing question: who will survive and what will be left of them? So why do you want to watch it? Let's be blunt. The movie itself is violent, and the hits and kills are still resonating even with today's audiences. It was filmed in a gritty manner, however, made with pure ambition of low-budget filmmaking and a love for the story itself. The dirty atmosphere and aesthetic play a large role in the overall experience. The movie also exists on almost every recommended-to-watch list of classic horror movies that you'll read, and people actually walked out of previews for this movie. And while that's historical, it still kind of speaks to the work that they put into the movie. Also, Leatherface himself, played by Gunnar Hansen, manages to captivate and terrorize without uttering a single coherent word the entire movie, pulling off one of the greatest, in my opinion at least, horror movie icon roles ever. The actors also literally suffered for their art, with injuries ranging from head bumps to falls and cuts. And while that may not sound impressive at all, it's interesting to note that due to a failed prop, there is actually an infamous scene where a very frustrated Gunnar Hansen opted to use a real knife and cut the hand of actress Marilyn Burns, who played Sally, just so they could get the shot that they've been trying to do over and over and over again. Her scream in that scene was real, folks. Plain and simple, this is what I call a comfort movie. It's a movie that I can put on while I'm working on projects. It's background noise. I don't have to actually watch it all the time to get an enjoyment from actually what's going on. I can pick up the scenes in my head, and the visuals are so wonderful that they're memorable, and I can just always see what's going on, even just by the audio clips that are being played in the background. So even if you've seen this movie 1,000 times, if you need something to watch, great recommendation to put on. Second movie recommendation for the episode, I'm going to throw out a fairly new movie here that I don't really hear a lot about in the hallowed hallways of horror, and that's probably because it's actually a PG-13 movie, but hear me out for a minute. Vampires vs. the Bronx from 2020, a Netflix original film. Directed by Osmani Rodriguez, whose portfolio includes a large amount of Saturday Night Live skits and segments, as well as some work for Funny or Die, and a single episode, apparently, of Will Forte's comedy show, The Last Man on Earth. This Netflix original horror movie hit the scene mid-2020, aimed at a wider audience, and it's been receiving some positivity and love from those who do in fact see it. So what's it about? The movie centers on a group of 3 friends who live in a portion of the Bronx that is actually being hit by a large gentrification effort. Essentially, a real estate conglomerate has come in to buy up older properties with the purpose of building bright, shiny new places with a Starbucks or Whole Foods on every corner. And while these friends initially try to do good and help a local business from getting hit by this unfortunate scenario, they get mixed up in a sinister plot led by some vampires who are looking forward to their newest feeding grounds. So why do you want to watch this movie? At this point, you're probably yelling at me or thinking to yourself, why do I want to watch a PG-13 horror movie? And fair enough, let's look at the facts here. Horror does not always designate that the movie's got to be an R rating or an NC-17 rating with tons and tons of gore to actually be enjoyable. Far from it. I present to you PG-13 horror movies that a lot of us have grown up to love. For example, The Monster Squad, Lights Out, Insidious, The Ring series, and even Drag Me to Hell. Listen folks, if PG-13 is good enough for Sam Raimi to release a movie and it did well, it's good enough for me. So continuing on as to why I want to recommend this movie, I mean, who doesn't love a good movie where the kids are the heroes? Adults just don't seem to want to listen, and the kids are the ones who are always right. Let's face it, there were times when we were growing up watching movies like this that you could imagine adventures like that yourself. Movies such as The Goonies, Stand By Me, and Monster Squad have all hearkened to that feeling deep within for further adventure in the child within all of us. Plus, the creators of this movie have put a lot of love into actually putting references to various other vampire lore and movies in it. It's one of those fun things about this movie is trying to find all the different little pieces of Easter egg that are hidden throughout the movie, talking about the history of vampires in cinema. Take a chance, watch the movie, check out the Easter eggs that are in it for an extra little bit of fun. Third recommendation I'm going to throw out in this episode. I'm a firm believer that everything happens in 3, so here it goes. This is a movie that just got released on video on demand, as well as pay-per-view, and there's some smatterings of screenings all across North America. Be careful out there, folks, if you attend one, social distance and everything else. I'm talking about Psycho Gorman, or PG for short. I have been waiting for this movie since its original announcement and the trailer first hit the internet. And I tend to drop this name into conversations all the time because I'm a big fan of the actual director, Canadian Stephen Kostanski. Psycho Gorman was picked up by RLJE Pictures, Ravens Banner Entertainment in Canada, and SHUDDER. So we will eventually see it on the SHUDDER streaming platform, but for now they got to make a couple of bucks off of production. So go out and support and rent this movie. What's it about? The story centers on a self-important young teen named Mimi and her quiet, bland younger brother, Luke, who uncover an ancient amulet that not only resurrects a galaxy-terrorizing alien overlord, but allows them to keep control over him. This leads to a bloody, darkly comedic adventure where the kids childishly make Psycho Gorman, or once again PG for short, obey their childish whims. Things eventually take a turn for the worse when an intergalactic high council takes notice of PG's resurrection and set out to destroy him and anyone who gets in their way, once and for all. So why do you want to watch it? Well, I'm going to be blunt. Stephen Kostanski has produced films that are absolutely resonating with the horror community at this point, and he is, first and foremost, a fan of great practical effects, as well as anything else that he can pop on screen to just make your eyes bulge from excitement. Stephen has even worked his way up in the industry, starting really kind of as an effects artist, first and foremost, working on such films as Wrong Turn 4, It, Resident Evil Retribution, and even Crimson Peak. However, he's also been working as part of a Canadian collective of filmmakers known as Astron 6, who I don't really think that they're kind of around together too much anymore, but the friends who they are still work on films together. And it's been great watching these guys grow as filmmakers and producers, directors, effects artists, etc. Working with Asteron 6, he also directed a bunch of classics such as Father's Day for Troma, The Editor, which was a Giallo throwback film, The Void with Jeremy Gillespie, and even for sci-fi, he got handed the reins to Leprechaun Returns, which does harken back to the fact that this is a return to the originality of the franchise that we all grew up with. You gotta check out this guy's IMDb profile. And now something that he can openly talk about that's come out into the news, Steven was actually tapped to direct the first 4 episodes of the Day of the Dead series coming from Sci-Fi, based on George Romero's story. So that's my third recommendation for the day. So as I stated, I'm in big support of fellow Canadian Steven Kostanski and what he does, and I will gladly throw out what he's doing as a recommendation anytime. It's not a bias thing, it's just I really enjoy his work. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you like the content that I produced today, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button below for the Misunderstood Art Company. And don't forget to check out some of the other stuff that we produce with the Misunderstood Art Company, such as a show that we have, podcast/web series that we call They Cast from the Coast, where I and a group of my best friends and fellow horror fanatics dive deep and review specific horror movies. A little bit longer than the episodes that you're watching like this, but very good content nonetheless. Until next time, keep it creepy, folks.